The second in command is assistant chief, and there's three positions for that. And there's two vacancies. The chief calls me into the office, and everyone knows it's down to the three of us, myself
Okay.
and two white males.
Right.
And then I'm even more confident because one of the white males has a high school diploma, and I'm in my doctoral program. I've been there longer than both of them,
Uh-huh.
and I've been in every single position throughout the agency. And the chief calls me in and says to me, "You're not getting promoted. I'm promoting the other two. You just have way too much baggage with you." And I'm like, "What?" And so I literally walk out the office that day and say, "I'm done." And then I get hired by GW as their police chief. And he calls me into his office
All right.
and he says, "Oh, I'm just, I can't believe you're leaving. This is just a huge loss for us."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Yes, it is. I'm taking me and my baggage, my Louis Vuitton luggage,
Good for you.
and we're going to DC." So
Good
I
for
took
you.
me and my baggage with me.
Welcome to Inside the Castle Walls, where we share enlightening conversations with contemporary pioneers who scaled walls to change systems, organizations, and themselves to contribute to the greater good. My name is Errol Southers, and I'll be your host for the program. Today, we're joined by Chief and Dr. RaShall Brackney, and it's a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to read as brief a bio as I can about Dr. Brackney. We're honored to host my dear friend and colleague, Dr. RaShall Brackney, distinguished visitor professor of practice at George Mason University, retired from the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police after over 30 years of service. Her leadership includes roles as chief of police at George Washington University and Charlottesville, Virginia, where she faced insurmountable challenges addressing community trust and racialized and radicalized violence in the aftermath of the Unite the Right rally. Dr. Brackney is recognized for her expertise in harm reduction, procedural and restorative justice, and enhancing community policing relations. Her research focuses on police legitimacy, transparency, and dismantling the institutions of supremacy, examining the intersections of policing, race, and structural inequality to reimagine public safety through social justice. A dedicated public servant and scholar practitioner, Dr. Brackney is a graduate of the FBI National Academy and contributes to national and global discussions on justice reform and democratic policing and furthering community engagement and public trust. Wow. I am so honored to have you here today.
Oh, so thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
So we met um, through Noble, as we both agreed on, um, some years ago because of a mutual friend and another former chief of police who I work with, Jackie Seabrooks. And it's just good to have you here today.
You know, it's always good to come full circle in a variety of ways. And I'm always excited to spend time with you. It just goes so quickly.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What did your parents want you to be and what did you want to be?
So I think what my parents wanted us to be is what I said to my daughter when she was looking for her first job. They just wanted a job with a W-2 and some health care, right? And a pension, maybe.
Uh-huh.
So pension jobs were really huge in the 80s when I was going into the workforce, the
Right.
early 80s. And, so they just wanted a job that was absolutely secure for me.
Mm.
But I had always wanted to be an attorney. I
Oh. Oh.
love debating and arguing. You're a middle child, one of
Mhm.
six. Oh, there's some arguing going on.
I
And
would
when you
imagine
got,
so.
yes, you got four sisters, the arguing over the one bathroom in the whole house, the arguing over clothes and outfits and who had access to the phone. Do you remember the long cord phones when your
I
little
do.
boyfriends are calling? Like who had
Uh-huh.
access? There was no call waiting, no calling. So you had to learn to negotiate and argue and prove your points to get a whole lot of things done in a household that large. And I would argue probably a brick wall. Like I would have
Right.
argued anything.
You so much wanted to be an attorney that I believe your mom gave you a pen that it was inscribed with a certain phrase on there.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So when I graduated from high school, um, There was this desk, like a pen holder, pen and pencil holder that
Yes.
you would have, and it was a picture of my high school picture
Mhm.
inscribed in acrylic, and it said RaShall Brackney, attorney at law. Everyone knew what I wanted to do. Everyone knew what I wanted to do.
So you went from high school to college where?
Carnegie Mellon. So
Okay.
I definitely not an attorney school,
Uh-huh.
but I went to Carnegie Mellon and studied public policy, which would have all dovetailed well into a law degree and a law career. Public administration, public policy, that whole arena just felt very, very, very comfortable for me.
Yeah. And as I recall, you entered Carnegie Mellon rather young.
Yeah, I just turned 17 and so I started early,
Mhm.
but again, if you remember back in those days, like we have six kids, four of us are all a year apart. There were a lot of Black folks
Yeah.
who said that you were 5 years old when you were 4 years old, so you could go to preschool or
Uh-huh.
kindergarten.
I
So,
remember.
and there weren't the same kind of restrictions then. You just
Right.
kind of put the child in school and they took them. So, very early on, I was in school extremely early. And we just had another interesting discussion with my sister and I because I probably would have entered at 16 because the school wanted to move me up early when they would have you skip grades.
Uh-huh.
And my sister had a say in it. And when we are literally less than a year apart, she said no. She's like, I am not sharing everything with Shell, including like we literally almost share birthdays. Like one day is mine, and the very next day she turns a year older than I am. So we're the same age for a day.
Yeah.
Um, she's like, no, we share birthdays, we share too many other things. I am not sharing a classroom with her.
Oh my
So
God.
I did start pretty early.
Okay. So tell us what happened. Graduated from Carnegie Mellon and went straight to law enforcement?
So interesting, did not graduate from Carnegie Mellon
Okay.
immediately.
Okay.
Interesting story is went to school, was there at Carnegie Mellon on scholarship.
Okay.
But as everybody knows, scholarship does not pay for everything. When they
Right.
say that your scholarship is your room and board and tuition, there are a lot of other costs to
Hmm.
attend a university. And I came from an extremely poor family.
Mm.
And when I say poor, I mean, when people talk about public assistance, welfare, we didn't live in luxurious environments. We were on food stamps, the old-fashioned pull books out, even though my dad was working a family of eight on his salary, we qualified for food assistance. And
Wow.
so that still was the case when I entered, well, they had gotten out of that system, but by 1980, Carnegie Mellon is $17,000 a year. Now, people are
Okay.
thinking, I wish it was $17,000 a year.
No
But when
kidding.
when you translate it to today's economy, it's the price it is now, 70 something thousand dollars a year.
Absolutely.
And so by the time my second semester of my senior year, I
Uh-huh.
had run completely out of money. I was in debt and owed Carnegie Mellon about $3,000, which
Already. Wow.
was out of my reach, right?
Yes.
Completely out of my reach.
Hmm.
So I left school and started applying for jobs and immediately got hired by the Pittsburgh Police Department. When I say I had just turned 21, so I was
Uh-huh.
finishing up Carnegie Mellon at 20, and now I was about to start. And at 21 years old, I started the police department and did not finish or go back to school until decades later to finish up my degrees and then pursue the rest of them.
Good for you. And so what was it like to enter the police department after leaving Carnegie Mellon, wanting to be an attorney, going into public administration, public policy, and now all of a sudden you're in uniform?
You know, it was actually kind of disheartening where I thought I had disappointed everybody.
Hmm.
My family, my sisters and I, my brother and I, we're all first gen in terms of college and universities,
Hmm.
that I had somehow let everyone down, that their hopes were riding on me to kind of redeem our name and redeem who we might be. And so, although it was a good job back then, it felt like a disappointment. And it particularly as people weren't celebrating Black women and women in policing at that. It was an extremely difficult time for us.
Right.
But for personally, it felt like a disappointment as though um, I had failed, right? That I couldn't do the things that I had wanted to do. And, that's we can talk differently about what does finances, the impact of finances on institutions when people aren't leaving school because they don't have the abilities, they just don't have the money.
Right.
And education becomes an elitist kind of pursuit. But then I then found myself after a very short period of time, I'm sitting in the academy chair in
Wow.
December 4th of 19 or December 3rd of 1984. I'm literally being sworn into the department before we even start our training. They used to swear you in back then before
Yes,
your training.
I remember that. That's exactly what happened to me. And so tell me again, I want to pivot here to race. How many women or black women especially were in your class? How many men? What were the class sizes like then in terms of demographic?
So really, at that point in time, everyone is under these consent decrees, very different than what you hear now. These
Yes.
affirmative action consent decrees, and Pittsburgh was no different. They had been
Okay.
sued for discrimination, and they admitted and found patterns and practices of discrimination where they would only hire white men, and
Hmm.
so black men, black women, and women in general were being excluded. And then
Hmm.
on top of that, they typically had height and weight requirements.
I
5'10",
remember that too.
you had to be 5'10", 180 pounds. Most women are automatically going to be excluded from that,
Right.
where the average height of a woman is 5'4". And
Geez.
so what they do is Pittsburgh has you take these tests, and then they break these tests up into four groups:
Okay.
white men, white women, and black women.
You're
And
kidding.
so I start out with a class of 40 of us,
Uh-huh.
um, 10 women who identify as black women, and so along the way. And then they scale us based on our scores on our civil service test. So
Okay.
even though we're broken up within your class, you have rank and seniority that is not distinguishable by race or gender, but it is
Okay.
distinguishable by civil service points. For veterans preferences, getting 10 extra points on top of their scores and test.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
yes, that's what it was like. Didn't end that way. Only 31 of us graduated out of the 40.
Out of 40.
31 of the 40, and of the seven of the black women of the 10 of us who started
That's
graduated.
that's very, very good actually.
Yes.
Very good. And so you go on to work patrol and like I would imagine like myself, I never envisioned being a chief. What did you think at the time?
I just barely was trying to survive the streets. Like
Uh-huh.
I had been in one physical altercation in my entire life. I had never
Uh-huh.
fired a weapon prior to that. And now I'm firing, revolvers back then, 38s.
Yes.
And then shotguns were it. I had never fired a shotgun, and surely not a 1 ounce lead slug or a buckshot.
Right.
I'm a city girl. Like I
Yeah.
may have heard of shots, but I wasn't shooting anything. And so, um, it was really interesting. So I never saw myself any higher than just surviving.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly since all the obstacles I was facing. Like I
Yeah.
was young, I'm a woman, I'm multi-ethnic. In the academy, I was being harassed based on my race and gender.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then when I get to the streets, I've got these streets to navigate. And I'm speaking in this language, as my partner said to me, is, will you quit talking like you're at Carnegie Mellon?
Oh
You
my God. Yes. Uh-huh.
because I'm thinking you can talk to people, you can rationalize them. And this was an older white female who says to me, "Listen, people aren't even going to know you're talking to them unless you're cussing at them." And I'm like, "What?" And
Right.
so I just barely thought I would survive the profession, and
Yeah.
I actually thought it would be a stopgap until as I continued to pursue, go back to school, and then go back to law school. Like I
Right.
really didn't think this was going to be a career.
Interesting. So there were no mentors in that department for you, I would imagine.
Oh, no, no, not at all. There were some extremely famous, what I would say, well-known, respected. Gwen Elliott was in the police department at the time. She's literally one of the ones who created national, programs around missing and exploited children.
Uh-huh.
missing children, sexually abused children. She became an expert in it. Chief Marita Bryant was in the department at the time, but again, they were at this point in time still in patrol or still in detectives, and maybe had moved up to the sergeant ranks. Eventually, they move up, and I can watch people from afar, but direct mentorship just didn't exist.
So you were on your own, and then tell us how your progression took place because you did start promoting and you did rather well.
Yes, I started promoting relatively quickly. So in Pittsburgh, civil service tests are what you have to do. You have to take the test, which is so interesting when people talk about affirmative action, right? Affirmative action may make you consider me, but it doesn't allow me to graduate. It
Thank
doesn't
you.
allow me to perform well on tests. It doesn't
Correct.
allow me to have the SAT scores or the
Uh-huh.
ACT scores and things of that nature, which is always an interesting proposition. And so I take my very first test in 1994. So in Pittsburgh, you couldn't take your first test to promote until you had completed 4 years.
Oh,
And
you
then
had,
so then
wow.
they only took the test every 2 years.
Right.
So by the time I'm first eligible to take the test, I'm just short of 9 years into my career.
Mm-hmm.
And I take my first sergeant's test.
Mm-hmm.
And I pass my sergeant's test, and I'm promoted. I take that test in 94 and promoted in March of 1995 to sergeant.
Okay.
At the exact same time, a couple months later, the lieutenant's test is coming up. So I take that too, so that we
Okay.
didn't have any time in grade or time in position rules like we do now. You could take
Oh,
the test.
very good.
So I take that test months later, and literally I'm number one on the list.
Mm-hmm.
So March of 95, I'm promoted to sergeant. November of 96, I make lieutenant.
Yeah.
That's really quick
That
um,
is really quick.
in a large agency.
Yeah.
Then right after that, November of 96, I'm a lieutenant. By I think it was now no October of 2000, I'm a commander. So I've risen very quickly in less than 6 years. I'm moving from the first entry level frontline based on my testing and my abilities and the work that I'm doing, that I'm literally now third in command in the department. And when I do that, I'm 38 years old by the
Outstanding.
time.
So you point out two things that I always find particularly interesting as well as annoying when I hear people talk about certain things. First of all, this notion that affirmative action somehow, if it gives you access, which is what affirmative action really
That's
is,
all it did.
that all of a sudden you're taking a different test or measured at a different scale as you earn a degree, get promoted. I don't remember taking any tests that said black on them, uh, or being promoted because it said black on the test. And then the other thing I always find very interesting is those situations where officers feel like I've got to be a sergeant for 5 years, a lieutenant for 5 years. If you're qualified to lead, there is no time and grade that suggests that you're better qualified if you spend 20 years before you become a commander or a chief. So good for you.
Yeah, and what's so interesting about it is, so my score, literally, you had the ability to score 105 points on the lieutenant's test,
Mm-hmm.
or because they did give you some longevity points or whatever. My score was 103 on the
Wow.
test.
Wow.
And so, of course, this black female could not have done this on her own. There
Mm-hmm.
were there were allegations that I cheated, that I had the answers to the test. Like it never came easy when I was
Mm-hmm.
promoted to sergeant. Like it never came easy. And
Right.
that's always the assumption is that these things are easy. Along the way, as you're talking about scaling the walls, if we bring it back to your conversation,
Please.
you're not even just scaling walls. I always use the analogy of when people break through that glass ceiling, but I can use this with your analogy of scaling a wall too.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine scaling walls and you don't have the right equipment. If you're a rock climber, you don't have the safety nets.
Right.
I didn't have generations of uncles and cousins who were on the police department, which is typically what happens with white males, right? They can point back generationally. I have no
Indeed.
safety nets.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have gloves. I don't have a hiking pick thing to jump into a wall. I'm like literally scaling this with my own hands, nails ripping off, all of the things, damage being done to my body, being done to my psyche. You slide down. If you've ever slid down a tree and got that brush burn, or on that concrete, you got that
Yes,
burn. Like your body, you're being assailed in so many ways, just trying to do what people might have an escalator going up that same wall have, you're now climbing at it. So
exactly.
as I'm doing the same thing with this glass ceiling, as I tell people, think about the damage of a glass ceiling. You are literally going through with your head
Hmm.
through ceilings, and then shards of glass are just being cut into your system and in your body. And then when you make it to the top, your feet are now on this cracked floor. There were no infrastructure and supports that are going to allow you to stay there. And most often, you fall right back down through it and experience the same kind of damage. It's the
Exactly.
exact same thing as you're climbing that wall internally in an organization like policing, and you're not part of the majority.
Right. You bring up a very interesting point, and I've said to officers or asked them, well, who else in your family is in law enforcement? Well, my parents. And who else? And my grandparents. I go, that's called access. That's affirmative action. You're
That's right.
given access.
That's
It
right.
doesn't mean you're more or less qualified, but you have the doors open because you understand what it works with.
And
So
if it's closed, you know the back doors because you built the system.
right, right.
So it's like those homes that never go on the market. They only go on by word of mouth.
Uh-huh.
It's because I'm calling such and such and saying, Mom's selling the home. You know anybody who's interested, right?
Right.
And so we don't have to expose the rest of the world to it. And you're exactly right when it comes to access and affirmative action. Like there's nothing on that civil service test when I become a sergeant that has my race or gender on it, nor does it have the advantage of these 10 veterans preference points that often they get. We're just
Hmm.
ranked strictly on performance.
Exactly.
So if affirmative action may have made you consider me, much like the Rooney Rule made you
Hmm.
consider Black coaches for the first
Hmm.
time in the NFL, you had to consider them. Not that they weren't qualified, but you were excluding them and they didn't have access.
That's
All
right.
affirmative action is give me
And,
the same access that everybody else has.
and with your incredibly extraordinary career, I know that you have had a number of phone calls asking you to consider opportunities that may not have been posted just yet because people want you.
Yeah, and it that thing happened for a very long time, and unless you'd wind up like I do, I'm very outspoken about the institutions of supremacy that is policing and how we can reframe that.
Yes.
Where some of my counterparts will fail up
Hmm.
if you are too vocal, if you are too confrontational about the issues, if you
Hmm.
refuse to compromise, you can find yourself in a career scarring position
That's right.
um, that my counterparts may not ever face. So I think, yes, it can be at both and, or sometimes it can be just the opposite, that
That's right.
where in the moment they're seeking you, if they feel it's too dangerous now, they will ostracize you completely.
And law enforcement can be very unforgiving in that space, and especially unforgiving to women.
Well, what's so interesting is I look at some of my male counterparts. I just circling back, I went back to school, went back to Carnegie Mellon, finished up my bachelor's. 2 years later, finished up my master's. A
Hmm.
couple of years later, started my doctorate, finished that in 2 years and 9 months. Like that is unheard of, right?
Yes, it is.
To do that, to go back to school, defend, still be a chief of police somewhere, and still do the work. And so again, something affirmative action can't help me with. And so what's so interesting is even today, if I go to compete for other jobs,
Hmm.
I still am competing against white males with a bachelor's
Thank you.
and they're being considered.
That's
I'm
right.
still being considered, and they're saying, well, what about expertise? I've worked in major cities. I worked in Charlottesville. I've run SWAT teams, special ops, major crimes, crime analysis units. So I've been in administration, operation, investigations, and support
Hmm.
across the gamut and universities. And I will have to compete against someone just because they're connected, whose credentials don't look even close to mine,
Right.
but I'm often called the DEI hire.
So you went on to become chief, but not
Yes.
in Pittsburgh. Tell us that story because you went over to GW.
Yes, yes, yes. So in Pittsburgh, I thought I was going to end my career and stay in Pittsburgh and be in policing in Pittsburgh until I was like forced to retire. I fell in
Same
love with
here.
the job, fell in love with what I was doing.
Right.
And interestingly enough, around 2013, 14, I've into those years, our police chief was indicted for embezzlement and things of that nature. And
Wow.
so the police chief position was opened. And they did a nationwide search for a new police chief, and it never happened before. Pittsburgh had always hired internally.
Okay.
And so the mayor at the time, Peduto, had said he had indicated that if you were internal, you could apply, but he was looking for an external candidate and thought that the corruption was running too deep. There were a lot of people named in this corruption, and our chief did 18 months in a federal prison after he was convicted of the crimes.
I did not know that.
So, and he's a black male. So we lose our police chief and they do a national search. Fair, you think everything's going to be up and up and fair. And so they do all this, they do all these things and community input and everything else. And when the list is finally put together of candidates, much like you know when you submitted candidates for LA,
Uh-huh.
you're ranked. And so by the time it came through with all the scoring and ranking, I was number one on the list to be the chief.
Congratulations.
Um, yeah, obviously that didn't happen. So I'm number one. And then they hire an external candidate. And so I'm completely deflated, completely deflated.
Justifiably so.
And but then I say to myself, okay, if the rationale is they wanted the external candidate, I can see that. I can't complain because they didn't hire any of the other internal candidates who were high on the list and they weren't given the opportunity to interview.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. So the new external candidate, the first and only one who's ever been in Pittsburgh, comes in, and the second in command is assistant chief, and there's three positions for that, or three total, and there's two vacancies. So they do this entire process again, community input, these public forums, all the surveys, et cetera, et cetera. And sure enough, I come in number one again.
For
And
assistant chief.
as assistant chief, and then there's two white males. So there's three of us that are going to be considered for these two vacancies. And I'm like, I'm gotta at least get one of them, right? There's three.
Right.
Right? I've got literally a 66% chance
Uh-huh.
of getting one of these positions. And so um interestingly enough, the chief calls me into the office and everybody knows he's about to make the announcements. Everyone knows it's down to the three of us, myself
Okay.
and two white males.
Right.
And then I'm even more confident because one of the white males has a high school diploma and I'm in my doctoral program.
And he's competing for assistant chief with a
That's
high
correct.
school
He's
diploma.
competing for
Okay.
assistant chief. I've been there longer than both of them,
Uh-huh.
and I've been in every single position throughout the agency. Everyone.
All
I've
right.
ran the training academies. I've done all this. I mean, like, I've done some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when he calls me in, I'm like, yes, about to
This is
be
gonna
assistant
happen.
chief Brackney up in here.
Right.
Not so much, right? This is how God reminds you who's in control, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the chief calls me in and says to me, I just want to let you know you're not getting promoted. I'm promoting the other two.
The
And I mean,
other
it's
two.
the other two. And clearly, he promotes a guy named Tom Stangrecki. Everybody knows this. And a guy named Scott Schubert, who eventually takes over as chief
Okay.
without any interviews or anything like that, gets promoted. And he says to me, now the chief at this point has only been there like 4 months. It's not a very long period,
Mm-hmm.
short period of time. You just have way too much baggage with you. And I'm like, what?
Yes.
He says that to my face, and is comfortable as a white male saying that to my face. I've got way too much baggage with me. And so he says to me, I'll tell you what, The third assistant chief, who was in the place, was a black female, Maureen Bryant. She's going
Right.
to retire in a couple years, 2 to 3
A
years. What we're always told, just wait your turn and be patient, and there'll
Mhm.
be plenty of time for you to get promoted then. So I'm like, really? And so I literally walk out the office that day and say, I'm done. I know my career is going nowhere
Right.
here. Um,
Right.
I had my 30 years in at that point in time. This is 2015. I'm still young person at that point, barely 50 years old, 50 something
Uh-huh.
years old. Um, and so I'm 51. So I have my time. I can retire. I start looking for other jobs and
Okay.
don't tell anybody that I'm
Good
doing
for
it.
you. Yeah, I get it. Been
And
there.
then I get hired by GW as their police chief.
Good for them. Good for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Wow. And so GW announced it, and I would imagine it came as quite a shock to Pittsburgh.
Because I had told not a single soul.
Uh-huh.
And of course, it makes national news that I'm leaving and Pittsburgh to go to George Washington University. Of course, George Washington's reach is phenomenal.
Yes, it is.
And Pittsburgh, I had been there my entire career and had did extremely well. And people wanted to know why I was leaving. And so um, the media calls my police chief, and I'm on vacation. I had already worked out I was going to be on vacation, and I said to GW, go ahead and announce.
Uh-huh.
And GW calls my police chief and says, we'd like you to comment on why Rochelle's leaving and the fact that she is leaving. And all these media are calling him. And his response is, I didn't even know she was leaving. She didn't discuss it with me.
Okay.
But we do have the conversation a week and a half later when I return from vacation. He calls me into his office
All right.
and says, oh, I'm just, I can't believe you're leaving. This is just a huge loss for us.
Hmm.
And I said, yes, it is. I'm taking me and my baggage, my Louis Vuitton luggage,
Good for you.
and we're going to DC. So
Good
I
for
took
you.
me and my baggage with me.
Oh my God. That's good. That's good. So you are in George Washington, at George Washington,
Yes,
and I want to not, I guess, not fast forward, but move forward to
yes.
again where we met was after the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. Where were you when that happened?
So it's backstory you don't know that I haven't told you and haven't talked to you about is there were very few people who understood the trajectory of white supremacy and domestic terrorism early on in the game
Hmm.
like you did.
Thank you.
So there were people who, when I say I watched people or mentored from afar, we had never met, but I knew about the way you moved in that
Thank you.
space and in that field and
Mhm.
how dangerous white supremacy could be. So when the Unite the Right rally happens in August of 2017, we were actually in Barbados. Um,
Oh,
Interestingly enough, the connection, my husband, as you know, your fraternity brother, um, his expertise is in slavery and lynching the Atlantic slave trade. So we were in Barbados, like where most people are like enjoying going to see where Riri grew up, or she was building her dad's house at the time,
right.
and everybody was trying to find out about Rihanna. My husband has me going through all these old slave sugar plantations,
Uh-huh.
and we're doing that work. We get
Wow.
back to the resort, and
Uh-huh.
it's all over C-SPAN and CNN. I'm sorry, CNN, that this was going on in Charlottesville. The
Okay.
tiki torches had happened the night before,
Right.
and then Heather Heyer and the ramming of Alex James Field's car into
Hmm.
there.
Hmm. Hmm.
And my husband turns to me crazily, as you all know, he's 6'2", black male from Mississippi,
My
professor
brother.
gonna
My
say
brother.
they're gonna say to me, "Oh, I wish we were there right now." And I'm like, I so wish I'm glad we're not, right? You as a black man with all these neo-Nazis and white supremacists coming in, and you 6'2", nobody's gonna think professor. They're gonna think threat. And that could be the police included. And
Exactly.
so I was actually grateful I had said to him that we weren't there.
Uh-huh.
Disappointed that this was happening, particularly the stance that the police were complicit and what was unfolding there and the attitudes and the rallies that were going, cops and Klan go hand in hand,
Yeah.
and that there had been all these other lead ups to this event that were predictable,
Yeah.
but that the police seemed to be very complicit. And so I was worried that had he been there, what that could have looked like for him.
Yeah. And as I recall, before the smoke cleared, the criticism of the police department was blistering.
It
But
was huge and blistering. You're exactly right.
Mhm.
Blistering about the inefficiencies um, from the Virginia State Police Department
Yes,
and from the Charlottesville
that's
Police
right.
Department. Interestingly enough, guess who got off the hook? UVA. Because people are so afraid to criticize that university.
Yes.
UVA's police department was right in the thick of everything.
Okay.
Remember, the first tiki torch occurred
Yes,
on their campus.
that's right. Yeah.
On their campus. And so it was blistering. Locally, they really did go after UVA's police department, but nationally,
No.
especially after the Heafy report, and if everybody knows Tim Heafy, the,
Hmm.
the the lead on the Jan 6 Commission investigating things,
Yes.
he wrote that original report and was extremely blistering of um,
Charlottesville.
Charlottesville Police Department.
I remember that. I remember that. And so it wasn't a surprise when they started advertising for chief. And how did that play out where you wound up in the mix?
So it wasn't my intention. As a matter of fact, they first put the advertisement out in January of 2018, and
Okay.
I'm at, or the first time I saw it, I'm at GW.
Yeah.
If anybody knows Foggy Bottom, it's like one of the
Yes.
coolest parts of DC that there is.
Why
Like,
would you want to leave there?
yeah, like, ooh, right? I love my campus. The students are responding well, my officers. And when I say my, I mean that in a very, like, I almost want to call it maternal way. They're
Yes.
responding well to the things we're doing, the things we're trying, changing it from this very security style police force to something that's much more warm and receptive to the communities. If my husband's at George Mason, like, as we call ourselves, at that point, those dinkies, double income, no kids, because our daughter's in Pittsburgh and we ain't got to pay bills the way we used to. So why would we
Uh-huh.
want to do anything? And I just casually comment to my husband, like, oh, that position is open. That would be really interesting. And it's just fleeting. I just kind of let it go
Okay.
until for some reason it opens back up in like March of 2018. And from my understanding is that they didn't feel like they had enough qualified candidates or a candidate pool. And
Right.
so they reopened it up in March of 2018. And the application was due like at a Thursday at 11:59 p.m.
Yes.
I
Uh-huh.
put it in probably Thursday at 11 o'clock p.m., somewhere just enough time in case the internet went down that it would have gone in.
The
Um,
last day.
Last day I put in, and the very next day, HR calls me and asks would I like to at least have a phone interview. They've already
What?
reviewed. Yes,
Wow. Somebody
yes.
was paying attention. Okay.
Probably, God, somebody was praying and looking out for my foolish self.
So you went and had the interview, and how obviously that went well.
Yeah, not as smoothly as one would think.
Hmm.
I later find out that there's 168 applicants. So I don't know how they must have been vetting the applications along the way on a rolling process until they could get their final group. And there were five of us that were in the final pool. And the very last interview of the day was with city council. So
Okay.
they're the ones who make the recommendations or whatever, and then they give it to the city manager. So it's a whole group, and then the city manager selects you
Right.
and then presents you to council for approval.
Okay.
And the last two, I'm in there. Um, this young sister is the mayor, right?
Okay.
Nakaya Walker, she's the mayor, and the vice mayor is a new person on council, and one of the other council persons is a guy named Dr. Wes Bellamy. And
Hmm.
so they're talking about my approach to policing and things of that nature. And somebody had given the mayor the wrong resume. It was not my resume.
You're kidding.
No. So like one of the pages in there, when they put the packet together, was not my resume. It had part of the resume of another person.
Uh-huh.
And so she's talking about this, and I say to her, hey, here's my philosophy on this. I teach on this stuff, policing black bodies, and I teach on the shading of democracy through race and things. And one of the books I anchor it in is Michelle Alexander's New Jim Crow. And she
Okay.
goes, how convenient. And then she says basically that she turns to the person, Dr. Bellamy says, how convenient that, like, as though I couldn't hear her, that
Uh-huh.
fell out of her bag or whatever. And I'm like, what? And then she starts drilling me about this program that had been in Richmond, um, uh, uh, like this Operation Exile, where it was a drug enforcement program.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never worked in Richmond. So she thinks I'm being dishonest and disingenuous.
Oh
And then
God.
she realizes, she's like, wait a minute. This is you worked in. I'm like, I've never worked in it. And then she looks at it and it's somebody else's resume. So she pulls
Oh.
it out. Now we look at mine.
Uh-huh.
And then it was at that point in time, she breathes a little bit better. The questions are starting coming, and then she can start aligning my previous work with what
Oh
I'm currently doing.
God, what a disaster that could have been.
But when I leave the office, I say to my husband, I haven't gotten that job. That mayor woman, whoo, she don't
Right.
even like me.
That's
Right.
right.
And so shortly thereafter, a couple days later, I get the call, would I be interested in the position? And
Outstanding.
was unanimously appointed to the position.
So I'm thinking, because I know what it's like to go to another department at that level. 'Cause I've done the same thing. I didn't I don't think I did what you did. I was there along with some other colleagues who I had worked with before. I was going to work for someone who I knew very well. In other words, we had this support system in place. You're going to Charlottesville after the Unite the Right rally is seen around the world to a place that I would imagine was not very welcoming to someone from the outside and much less who looked like you.
Yeah, and we can talk about those lessons learned about climbing the wall.
Mhm.
Take a team, take a team with you. If you go on to go up a wall, don't scale it yourself.
Hmm.
Um, Even if it's just someone who knows how you think and can
Yes.
be an accountability or a sounding board, even if they don't have to agree with you,
Hmm.
may not understand completely. Don't try this solo, particularly when you're going to a new organization. I
Right.
lucked up at GW because GW has such a diverse population of
Yeah.
police chiefs and things like that, because they're pulling from a very diverse area between Maryland, Virginia, and DC,
Of
right?
course.
So you have everybody from across the globe, and the officers there are often there pursuing their bachelor's or their master's and some of
Hmm.
their PhD programs, right?
Hmm.
Because they can get reduced tuition. So there's a different level of officer there at these universities. And when I go to, I tell the story when I first show up, and there are two other Black females when I arrive there. One is a sergeant, one is a detective, but
Okay.
the highest ranking um, Black female in the organization. And I know I'm the highest ranking. If I know nothing else, I know I'm the highest ranking. And on day one, after I'm confirmed and I'm going to show up on that Monday, and as you know, going to a new organization in a new city, I've never lived in Charlottesville before.
Right.
We had purchased our home, and now I'm living in a hotel until our home is ready.
Uh-huh.
Things like that. And everything about your world is just changing quick,
Yes. Yes.
and you don't know the inside ball politics, right?
Hmm.
You don't know, you don't have any historical perspective or narratives. You have no institutional memory about the organization. So you, in some ways, you walk in blind, and that's good.
Yes.
And so that leaves you an open mind to whatever. I
Mhm.
had I had one rule as I first walked in. I said, the first person in my office who goes to tell me about everybody else, that's the person like I'm going to remember from The Godfather. Like whoever
Yes.
brings you the meeting, that's
Uh-huh.
the person you need to watch out for when they
That's
tell Al
right.
Pacino.
That is
Whoever brokers the meeting, that's the person you work out. And that surely turned
absolutely.
out to be the truth. But
Hmm.
more importantly, I'm walking down the hallway, and this white male starts walking towards me. and he's in uniform, and I can tell he is a lieutenant. So I know I outrank him. I don't have a
Mhm.
uniform yet. Like it took a while to get me a uniform, no matter what we did, which was a interesting point of criticism from the community that I didn't wear a uniform. Never asked me why I didn't have a uniform. Um, but even still today, women getting uniforms can be difficult, particularly
Yes.
white shirts,
Yes.
particularly
Yes.
white shirts. So the guy walks towards me as I'm walking down the hall,
Uh-huh.
and he says, doesn't introduce himself, doesn't say his name, anything. And he says, in my best Southern accent, I don't know about you, but I don't drink no damn pumpkin lattes and I vote Republican. And I'm like, shoot, like internally, it's the first things out of my mouth.
Wow.
And so I responded and said, well, guess what? Neither do I. I drink Venti extra hot peppermint white mocha skim light whip. And he was like, what?
Ah, good for you.
He's what? Now, here's what's so interesting. He became one of my most ardent supporters,
Really?
converted completely, converted completely. Every time we would have demonstrations, rallies, and marches, particularly we were preparing for after what happened in 2020
Yes.
and the marches around George Floyd and demonstrations.
Mm-hmm.
I had him leading. By then, I had promoted him to captain. I had him leading the troops, and he was going out there. He says, we're going to let them march, we're going to let them demonstrate. You know why? They're exercising their First Amendment rights to
Wow.
express their dissatisfaction with government. He delivered a message I could have never delivered, because it would have been the expected message from this Black woman, but
Yes.
from a white male who was part of the institution and grew up in the institution, it landed completely different.
Wow. If, well, if that's not an example of soft power, I don't know if there is one. And
Yes.
so, what happened in Charlottesville? Because I can't even imagine walking into an agency where you've got to have your back against the wall as the chief.
So literally every day, either council was attacking me, community was attacking me, Black community, white community, it didn't matter, which was
Mhm.
interesting. There was a call to bring back the previous chief,
Uh-huh.
not the one who was terminated before me, but Chief Tim Longo,
Yes.
who had been the chief for over a decade there and was now over at UVA. Get rid of this affirmative action woman. Like it was bad. When I say it was bad,
Hmm.
there wasn't a time that I felt fully supported and empowered. I fought every single person at every single level. Um, my ideas were thought of these leftist ideas. When you empower
Right.
the community, interesting enough, even Black community felt more empowered to attack me in a way they had never thought about attacking my predecessors.
Yeah.
Um,
I
they
understand
attacked
that
my
well.
ethnicity. They
Hmm.
attacked, I mean, in an open forum. Someone
Hmm.
literally said that about me. She should know better than that. She's biracial her own damn self.
Right.
Wow,
Right.
wow. And so it was a constant barrage, with very few oases in that
Hmm.
space.
Hmm.
The good thing about it is one of my strongest allies became the mayor herself. The mayor herself, who was the most resistant at first to even wanting to hire, became
Oh,
my
her.
strongest
Yes.
ally.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. And so, how long were you there?
I spent just short of 4 years there. 3.5, just short of 4 years
I didn't
in
know that.
Charlottesville. Left in December of 2021,
Okay.
after being hired in 2018. And so left really under very controversial way. I had conducted an investigation into some of our officers, and they found out that I had this culture of corruption within the SWAT team,
Uh-huh.
exchanging of nude videos of women, misogynistic things, racist things, text messages saying they were going to kill two other officers, because they thought they were snitching to me, and then text messages that they were just going to kill me and let God sort it out. Um, It was bad. Racist messages talking about the skin color of our officers, that our new recruits' black officers' skin got whiter and whiter
Mhm.
every time they work with field training officers who were white. It was
Mhm.
just horrible. Um, and as a result of my investigation, I wound up terminating 6 officers and
Good
disbanding
for
our
you.
SWAT team. And as a result of it, my city manager decided that I was the real problem.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and
Of
that
course.
he was to terminate my contract without cause. They put out there constantly I was fired, but terminated my contract without cause. Um, and so I left the police department there, and all of the things that I had put in place that would protect the community around transparency, legitimacy for the officers, um, immediately got rolled back, and almost all of them are completely gone now. Um, now that there's a white male in position, not one person, including the communities who are being targeted and who have been marginalized by the institution.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's just exhaustion
Yeah.
or if it's just we don't challenge white men in this patriarchal society that we call America.
No, we don't. And no one has summarized it better than you have when you said to me once, never underestimate the institution's commitment to the status quo.
That's correct. That was one of I told you I'd made 2 huge mistakes that I'll never make again. Um, as you're talking to people who are climbed and have made it or in that process of climbing the wall,
Mhm.
man, team is important. Having a bench is important,
A
that you bring
absolutely.
your team with you
Mhm.
and never underestimate the institution,
Wow.
right? Because we would think Charlottesville, of all places, would have been the perfect place to become this exemplar
Right.
for how you could do policing and how you could restore at least some sort of faith in policing and legitimacy in the community.
Mhm.
Again, I always tell people we don't need to reimagine policing. We need to imagine it for the first time because it's never been imagined correctly. It's
Right.
never been that. You would have thought that would have been the place, and if that place was resistant,
Mhm.
right? If that place were resistant, think of all the other places that haven't had that kind of exposure and
Mhm.
still are comfortable tamping back to that.
Yeah.
Even after all the exposure and all the things that I uncovered there, they're still very comfortable. In
Right.
fact, every one of the officers that I fired or were involved in the investigation, officers I demoted,
Yes.
within Charlottesville Police Department under the new chief who's still
Okay.
there. He promoted them back again and even further in the ranks.
Why am I not surprised to hear that?
Not at all. And then the other officers who were actually terminated, every one of them,
Mhm.
every one of them in the neighboring institutions or neighboring, yeah, have jobs. Every one of them. Every one of them. Do you know the only person who's not working in policing right now? Me,
You.
me,
Wow.
me.
Well, again, just thank you for the tenacity and the courage to do what you did for as long as you did. I want to pivot a little bit though, because the irony here is you and I discussed as I talked to you once and asked what was your most memorable moment in your career, and it was kind of ironic with regards to who was involved and what it was about. Can you share that?
Yeah, so most officers will talk about these memorable moments about a child they saved, or and there's nothing wrong with that, or there's this this thing they did that they solved, right? It's
Right.
normally related to some huge case.
Something
um,
heroic.
yeah, I climbed up a tree and gathered somebody out of a burning building as I jumped backward on my one broken leg, and I
Right.
rescued the cat along the way too, right? Still not my story. Mine is just the opposite, where I didn't know it was going to be a memorable moment until literally, when I tell you literally, a month ago. A month ago was my most memorable moment in the nearly 40 years that I was in policing. Um, in 2013, Pittsburgh
Mhm.
police officers shot a young black man in a traffic stop. He was unarmed. He gave him his driver's license, insurance card, owner's card, all the things. Sat there for 20 something minutes while they ran his ID. all white officers around this 19-year-old black male with no criminal record,
Mm-hmm.
did nothing but sit there, wait for them, wait for them, wait for them. And along the way, the officers decided that this young man who gave him all the information and identification was not who he said he was. His name is Leon Ford. They said he was Lamont Ford and that he was lying to them, right? He has a driver's license, matches
Right.
him, car, everything else matches. Everything matches. It's 11 o'clock at night. It's dark. As we all know, what's happening. He's already been there now. He's 19, 20 something minutes, 25 minutes. They decide that he's the Lamont Ford, who is part of a gang. But interestingly enough, even if so, Lamont Ford doesn't even have any warrants. Like there's
Okay.
nothing that he's wanted for. But I can't arrest you and go to court unless I can get you for things like false ID to a police officer versus your traffic ticket. Traffic
Right.
tickets, no court, no overtime. Arrest, court, overtime.
Got it.
Anyway, they decide at that point in time, 25 minutes in, that he's to get out of the car and they're going to arrest him
Mm-hmm.
for false ID. They tell him to get out of the car. He goes, no, why am I getting out of the car now? Like, I've been here. This is a traffic stop. They're like, get out of the car. Two get on the driver's side. One gets on the passenger side. And they all of a sudden decide he has a gun. That is why they need him to get out of the car. That they can see a bulge in his leg, get out of the car. Now, you've been there now for 25 minutes, and all of a sudden, the one officer who comes on the scene all of a sudden sees a bulge, sees a gun, and he's the wrong person. So they open the driver's side door. And when you open the
Mm-hmm.
driver's side door, you're both inside the driver's side door. And then the guy in the passenger side decides to open the door, violate police 101, and get in the car,
Oh,
the front seat. So the two driver's sides are pulling him this way. The passenger one is pulling him this way. Leon Fart will tell you the story. He says he put it in drive. I don't think he knows, but when I did the investigation, it's a gear shift that's on the between the console, not on the thing. He's
yes.
holding on to it. The car is still on. They never had him turn off the vehicle.
Okay.
Car's on. One's pulling you this way, one's pulling this way, and you're holding on to the gear shift. The car goes into drive, takes off for about no, let's just say it's not even a long, let's say 50 to 100 yards.
Okay.
When it goes off, the driver door shuts, the passenger door just shuts. By now, though, the guy's already inside of it. This passenger side police officer shoots Leon 5 times, pulls out his gun, shoots him 5 times. Leon crashes, again, less than 100 yards from the scene.
Right.
They pull him out of the car after he shot 5 times, throw him on the ground. He doesn't know at this time he's paralyzed. They cuff him, etc., bleeding out. He says one of the officers reached down and tell him to die, nigger, to die. And again, of course, a dead witness cannot contradict your story.
That's right.
Leon survives. I do the investigation, the critical incident review investigation with
Yes.
2 other persons, and there's roadblocks the entire way. It gets to the point where I believe our officers are lying. I have the video to prove that he was not trying to drive away, that he didn't drag them the way they originally said. He didn't try and run them over. Like, I've got the video from the dash cam of the car behind.
Sure.
Even though they had all these lies, they take Leon to court. Leon's found not guilty, and I think they do find him guilty of the traffic violation, which
Okay.
they still don't know what the traffic violation was.
God.
True story. So fast forward, this is 2013. Here we are now, 2025. This 19-year-old man is now, this 19-year-old man now is 32 years old. And so we're at the Noble Conference, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Noble Conference that just occurred in August in Hollywood, Florida, of all places.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know that Leon is being honored because I've now introduced him to Noble, and he started an organization that actually helps to repair relationships between Black men and the police. Starts his
Okay.
own foundation. Who does that? But
Okay.
anyway, he's getting this award, and they call Leon up, and he's in his wheelchair. assisted by his girlfriend, and they're giving all these awards. And I just go up to just take pictures. I'm like, oh my God, Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
And Leon starts giving his acceptance speech. And he says that the only person who gave him faith and hope and what good officers could be and who they were all these years is Dr. Brackney. And he says it over and over again. He's like, I didn't trust police. I didn't trust anybody, but she, her
Uh-huh.
integrity,
Uh-huh.
her commitment to doing what was right, her always wanting to help. Like, he's like, she's the only reason that I'm here doing this work. And
Outstanding.
I just started bawling right then and there in front of, a couple thousand people.
1,000 people, couple of that.
Uh,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
so talking about the most memorable moments and the impact you don't even know you have,
Yes. Yes.
the impact you don't know you have.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you for your service. I
No,
want to do a
no.
couple things here. You mentioned your
Yes.
book in the beginning of our conversation. What's the title of that book?
I'm actually writing two.
Okay.
Um, yeah, overachiever here, right? Right. Can't get through school at one point, and now here I am teaching at one and then writing two. The one that's going to be out first, it's already under contract with Sage Publishing, is called Policing, and then in parentheses, the word injustice. So policing injustice. So
Okay.
that's my,
Congratulations ahead of time. I will make sure that people get that, and I will too, and we'll have a book talk.
thank you. The second one that I'm writing is more personal. It's called The Bruising of America, When Black, White, and Blue Collide.
Ooh, congratulations.
Thank you.
That
Yes,
is
yes.
wonderful. So before I say thank you, and I'll never be able to say thank you enough, what can people do to join you in your efforts to reform, change, improve, engage, all those things that we discuss and seem to be so difficult to attain?
So the first is educate yourself about the issues. This social justice fatigue is real, right?
Hmm.
So educate yourself about the issue that you most care about,
Hmm.
and then hold on to that. I am really pushing people a lot. Mayor Karen Bass, years ago when she was in Congress, introduced the Justice and George Floyd Policing Act.
Hmm.
Passes the House, fails in the Senate, fails in the Senate. And what I challenge individuals to do, both police chiefs, etc., for every one of you police chiefs who marched and took knees,
Yes.
how many of you wrote in and said support the bill?
Thank you. Exactly.
So educate yourself about the issues and then do the research to hold people accountable.
Hmm.
Who is it that you can contact that can pull those levers? If we can get Jimmy Kimmel back on the air, are you telling me
In two
we
days.
cannot get
Or
a bill like that passed?
right.
Right now, the registry, the Lewis registry and all the registries the ideas that you put together across the federal government right now for officer misconduct has been shut down.
I
The
know.
federal government shut it down. So you can't even access as an agency if there were officers who have issues around corruption, of violence, who've been arrested. That's the kind of thing. Get behind that to get it open back up. Make them open that back up.
Thank you.
Write your congresspersons, write your senators to do that kind of work. And more importantly, look to see if the actions of your police chief are aligned with the actions of your constituents. And what do I mean by that? If they've got policies and they're saying they're going to do one thing, how are we checking on them? If
Exactly.
they say there's a report coming out, where is it? Are
Right.
we reading it? So you need to get involved at the very local level so that it
Mhm.
can play out at the national level.
Thank you. Thank you. Outstanding. Well, again, I'm just going to thank you, Chief Dr. Brackney, my good friend RaShall, and now I know why you were named RaShall and how.
At least you do.
Yeah. I'm just going to close here by just saying thank you for your service and best of luck. You know, we call each other, so we're not going anywhere. But I'm just going to close out by saying to our audience, thank you for joining us for this episode of Inside the Castle Walls. This program is produced by Maya Southers. You may listen to our program on a variety of platforms identified at our site, which is Inside the Castle Walls Podcast.com. That's Inside the Castle Walls Podcast.com. Discover the other extraordinary people who have joined us to share their successes, to get inside the castle and become the solution we're all looking for. Dr. Brackney, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And I can't tell you how much I admire what you do and what you still have to accomplish.
Thank you. And congratulations on your podcast. It's so exciting.
Thank you so much. I won't let you leave without saying I had the honor of being on your podcast, and it was one of the best episodes I've ever done on anyone's podcast. Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes. So Black Arm of the Law, feel free to jump in it. And you are still one of my highest rated podcasts from more than 2 years ago. The most
All
downloaded,
right.
the most connected. So congratulations. I am looking forward to your success.
Thank you so much.